Welcome into a new BuffStampede Radio. Adam Munsterteiger, the publisher of BuffStampede.com, joined again on this Sunday by football analyst William Gardner. We've got another week of spring practices to talk about. We've got the pro timing day to talk about. And knowing us, we're going to go on some tangents at some point during this show. How are you doing, William?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you today?
Doing well. It was kind of a busy week. You know, we had spring break, and at the tail end of that, Coach Prime's contract gets announced, and then we dive it back into spring ball, and pro timing day was quite an event. So a lot to digest here. Where do you want to start? Should we start with the Saturday scrimmage they had yesterday?
Yeah, let's start with the scrimmage, unless you want to start with your favorite toy that you've recently found.
Well, I know that Mel Tucker is missing right now, but I found him right here. He's hanging out. Why do I have this? It's a long story, but yes, Mel Tucker is hanging out with us today.
Yeah,
in case I don't know, they want to serve a subpoena. I'm not going to give them my address, but hit me up on the socials, and I'll give you the address.
You're not going to receive his subpoena on his behalf.
I will say, as a media member, it was really fun covering that team, but just some of the stuff you heard and continue to hear, it's not good, man. It's not good.
Well, you know, he was the one that used to be at the top of my he needs dental work from William Gardner list, but he got passed up by a sweet Danny up in Oregon because Karma got to Coach Tucker before I could.
Yeah.
I guess I shouldn't laugh. Maybe it's not. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
if anybody ever deserved to laugh at their misfortune, he's the guy.
I think for Colorado fans, that absolutely is warranted because of what transpired after he left. And some of that stuff was, you know, COVID hitting and everything, but like 22, man, like, come on, Mel. Well, why did you put us in this situation? But that's water under the bridge. Let's move forward to the current Buffaloes, which are very exciting. Mentioned the pro timing day with all 32 NFL teams in attendance. But I think we should lead off here with the scrimmage, which they got a message from Champ Bailey, another Hall of Famer, a college football Hall of Famer, a pro football Hall of Famer. One of the last guys that people kind of referenced when Travis Hunter was doing the two-way thing in college. They were a lot of times referencing what Champ Bailey did during his career at Georgia. Obviously, Travis surpassed any of that stuff, but Champ was such an unbelievable athlete in college, goes on to the NFL, and you've got Champ Bailey and Coach Prime in the team meeting, standing side by side. I did the math here, William. Those two between them had 105 interceptions in the NFL. And that overshadows Kevin Mathis, who started 115 NFL games.
Yeah.
And he's obviously no slouch himself, right? So you've got more quarterback coaching talent on the field on Saturday than anywhere else in the country by far.
Well, I mean, that doesn't even go to mention, you know, Marshall Faulk and Warren Sapp, and my God, the depth of football knowledge on this team is kind of ridiculous. I think we'll get to recruiting at the end of this thing today a little bit, but that sort of leads into that a little bit as well. But just being able to teach these guys, you know, the nuances and really, you know, when you get into a game and the talent levels kind of equal out, it's the guy who has the little tricks and the little nuances and the little you know, tiniest pieces of the game who's going to win out, you know, and then, you know, heart and how much desire they have and all that. But it's really kind of unbelievable, frankly, if you were to sit in a corner of that meeting room and just kind of look around the room, it looks like a reunion meeting from Canton, you know, from the Hall of Fame or something.
Yeah. Yeah, that was pretty cool. And you saw Colton Hood picking Champ Bailey's brain on the practice fields. And Champ Bailey's son, Braden Bailey, a 2028 prospect from Atlanta, picked up an offer from the Buffs on Saturday. Actually, as we're talking right before we went live, I'm been exchanging DMs with Braden Bailey, so hopefully I'll have a story on him on the site coming out there. One thing, go ahead.
Well, it goes both ways too. It's not just the secondary and the cornerbacks who benefit from this, because it strikes me about one thing that I saw in the scrimmage from yesterday, that our young quarterback Juju Lewis threw an interception, and then afterward you see him and Coach Prime and our offensive coordinator Shermer are talking to him, but Coach Prime is looking and he's talking to him. He's talking about the defensive backs, and you hear him say, "It's a safety, right? It's a safety. That's your guy." And so he's teaching him from the defensive back perspective as a quarterback. You got to see this secondary, and here's what they're going to do to you, and that's how you got to see it and find your right guy. So I think the defensive backfield NFL experience helps those quarterbacks and receivers as well.
Yeah. And we should mention that Caden Salter had a pick as well in that scrimmage, so it wasn't like Julian was the only one that had that. Carter Stoutmeyer and DJ McKinney both with picks in that. I got to say, not just from the scrimmage, but just watching last week, it really seems like Tulsa receiver transfer Joseph Williams is really fitting in. That one catch he had at the back of the end zone, I mean, that's top 10 SportsCenter plays of the day right there. I mean, that was an unbelievable catch that he made. So his willingness to carry the torch from Will Shepherd with some of those tough ball catches, I think he's doing a good job of living up to that so far.
And I think, it's far too early. Okay, I look up on my screen and there's Adam talking on some interview wearing a suit. So that kind of distracted me. I got an Adam here. I got an Adam there. I don't know what the heck to do. But going back to the scrimmage and the practices so far, I would say from my, I'm not ever going to be a quarterback specialist or anything like that, but to my eye, it looks like Caden Salter is well ahead of Juju Lewis at this time, which you would expect because he's a fifth-year guy. And he's much more polished and makes plays at this time. But you can certainly see the talent and the ability of a Juju Lewis, and sooner or later that's going to come to the fore as well. But so I'm not going so far as to say that Salter's winning that battle, but just from what I can see, he runs that offense a little bit better right now. But we'll get into more of that.
And a lot of the stuff that Caden Salter does that's so good is when quarterbacks are live, and you can't put him live. And we actually saw Julian Lewis's arm get hit pretty hard by a defender, and Coach Prime had to step in and say, that's a first down. You can't do that when we tell you the rules are you can't touch the quarterback. The real fireworks came when, would you call it a cheap shot? I felt like Tyler Brown was kind of like, the play was over and he's getting kind of picked on, and then he headbutts, was it Tuffy Thomas, and all heck breaks loose. And what did you take away from that whole melee?
Well, one of the linebackers came up and actually threw a swing and punched Tyler Brown.
A sucker punch almost.
Yeah. And so that was, and I don't know what was being said or what. And I took Tyler Brown, Tawfiq Bayard, and they're face to face, and I don't know what Bayard said, and Tyler Brown just, basically kind of got in his face and like blocked him more or less, right? And then the linebacker, and I couldn't tell who it was, came and punched him in the back of the head, and then of course a little bit of pushing and shoving started, and that's not the part that matters, okay? Because that's just part of spring ball, and you're getting chippy with each other, and you're getting tired of each other. What matters is what happened after that with Coach Prime, and this I think a couple years from now we're going to look back, and this will be the definitive moment of CU football under Coach Prime, because our excellent equipment guy, Smitty comes up and said, he gives the two numbers. He says, what do you want to do? As in, you got offsetting personal fouls, and one of them would have been thrown out for sure. But Coach Prime says, offensive line, get over here. Brings a whole offensive line over there. And I'm going to quote this because this is so important to me. And he gets them all gathered around there, and he looks at him. He says, if I ever see a linebacker punch one of y'all and you don't kill that dude, we're going to have a problem. Y'all ain't taking no whoopings. We give whoopings. We don't take no whoopings. And he looks at him and says, and he starts to say, so next time, and Yaya Atia cuts him right off and says, "We beat his ass." And then coach sends him back to the huddle. And there's a lot of things to take out of this. Number one is Coach Prime is sick of being pushed around and doesn't want to, he wants to put the attitude in this offensive line that you got to be more physical and violent. You don't take no shit from nobody. Okay. And that's an attitude that the offensive line has to have. And when it comes from the head coach, and another thing he said in there is like he looked at Tyler Brown and he said, that ever happens again, you get yours and I will not stop you. Okay. And the point is, this is not a game where you sit politely from your tee with your pinky in the air. This is a gladiator sport. And if you don't instill that sort of, this is a game of intimidation. Okay. It's as simple as that. And if you don't intimidate the other side, they will intimidate you. And we saw that last year, the wrong damn direction a couple of times. And I think
not as many as the year before, right? They at least improved it. It's kind of like a building process, I feel like, in that sense.
But I think Coach Prime is sick of seeing it at all, and he wants that offensive line to start kicking ass and taking names, and I think that I think he had a message specifically for Tyler Brown was, you are as big as strong as you are, you've got to be the Hulk out there sometimes, and Hulk got to smash, and so. He's tired of passive offensive lines. That's one thing. And he sent a message saying, you better start knocking heads and we're not playing around anymore. But yaya at you, man. That kid got it right. He didn't need any prompting. We beat their ass. And if we don't have that mentality along the front of the offensive line, then we're going to get pushed around and ass beat. So I think Coach Prime calling them out in that particular moment for that, out of all the things he could have said in that moment, and I don't know if he said more things to the defense after that or the linebacker or Bayard or whatever, but what he made out of that was to take the offensive line to task and say, never again, no more. You get out there and you hand out whoopings. We don't take whoopings. And that's going to be a message that resonates with the entire team because everybody hears it. Everybody's going to hear it. And I think that the title of that video was "If one fights, you all fight," and so again, the team is a family, and you fight for your family and your team. So I think that was a defining moment of spring so far to me, and it shows what kind of a team Coach Prime wants to build here, and that's a dominating, ass-kicking team. Man, I don't have any other way to put it except that.
Isn't that partly why we love football? Because, people can't show up to their jobs with that mentality. that would not end well. So you've got this. Yeah, no, everybody would like to. That's why I think that people really enjoy having these glimpses into Colorado's program because if you're a football fan, that's what's required. But that there's only this small part of life that can get away with some of this stuff. And there's some of these feelings when somebody's just a jerk to you, whether you're at the grocery store, on the freeway, wherever, where you want to react. And if you do the right thing, you're like, I got too much to lose here. So dial it back. But you can, but you like, that's why I think we love the primal nature of football is that, it's human nature to have these feelings and to be able to kind of put them out there almost in a healthy way because you need a football team that's going to be willing to be aggressive that way. That I don't know that's the part of the physical part of this sport that it makes these guys better. Like I talked to Derek Webb for like 15 minutes and he talked about all the lessons he learned at CU and how that's helped him in life. And so it's the time in your life to get that energy out, I guess. And I think everybody that's in their young 20s would like to have that opportunity at times.
But it's also two things come to mind. Number one, as a young player, he's also teaching you that you got to stand for yourself and your teammates, but there's also time and a place, okay? Because we can't just willy-nilly have 15-yard penalties and guys thrown out of games. But when somebody crosses the line, an example has to be made, man, or otherwise you're a punk, and as a fan, I go out and I wear this logo out there, I want to be proud of it. Okay, and it's not just wins and losses; it's proud of a team that stands up and fights and doesn't take shit, and does it the right way and all those kinds of things. So I think as a fan of a team, you want to see that as well because it's a physical sport, and God knows all of us have watched too much of CU players getting pushed around on the field in the last 20 years, and we're sick of it. And Coach Prime, I think, feels that, right? And he's sick of it too. As good as we did last year, we were more of a finesse team than a physical team. Well, maybe not necessarily at inside linebacker and up on the defensive line, but I think this year, I think he's tired and sick to death of a passive offensive line. And when I think back on I still go back, my all-time favorite in 40 years of being a CU fan, player, participant, every other way I've been involved in. My favorite play of all time as a CU Buff is that game against Nebraska in 2001 when Andre Giroud pulled and took that Nebraska outside linebacker and pinned that son of a bitch against the frickin' fence where they hold Ralphie back there at the north end zone and pinned him against the fence because that's the ultimate, most dominant play I've ever seen in all of football at any level. And that, to me, epitomized the brute force nature of that team and the great CU teams of the 90s, right? Just that total domination. And it's curious to me that this moment comes when Andre Giroud is back on the team. And I got to figure, Andre Giroud followed up, he's not going to have his head coach having to say that. He wants to be them to play the way he played, So I think this bodes very well for us for this season. And I'm pretty excited.
Don't you wish Khalil Benson had stuck around to get coached by Andre Giroud? I think those two would have been a force together.
Right. And I think it would have been great for Khalil but he made his choice. But I think, so it is interesting. And I guess this might as well be as good a place as any that I did watch that scrimmage video very carefully. And I was able to pick out our top two offensive line, not me picking them, but the way they played it. Okay. So the first team offensive line has changed, and it's interesting to me. I think this says something. So the left tackle, clearly Jordan Seaton, but the left guard is Zach Owens now. And if you watch them huddle and you watch them on the sideline, Zach Owens is so damn big, he makes Seaton look small. And then the center this week, and the center with the number ones was McGill.
I'm a big fan of his. I really liked him coming in.
He was there. Zarian McGill was the number two center, or number one center, excuse me. The number two center was Yaya Atia. So I don't know if Cash Cleveland was out sick or something else. I don't know. I wouldn't take a bigger thing from this right now because, I didn't see Cleveland with the number twos or anything else. But it was interesting to me that first line was McGill and Owens, and then the right guard was Zy Chrysler, and the right tackle was Taimani. Mana Taimani, and he's growing in that role. He's getting better at that right tackle. And so that whole offensive line outside of Seaton was four new guys, and they're freaking enormous. So, if you go, I went and looked them up, and Taimani's listed 6'5", 350. Chrysler's listed 6'7", 350. McGill's listed 6'2", 310. Owens is listed 6'6", 340, and Seaton's listed 6'5" and 310. And they're freaking huge. Now there's still work to be done because there are still things I saw that they got to work on, and they got to get more physical. And I think Coach Prime was addressing that. But it was interesting to me in the first scrimmage to see that offensive line change that much. And then the number two offensive line went from left tackle was Vertus Shelby, and he's getting better from what I saw the first week. Tyler Brown was the left guard at number two, and Yaya Atia was the center with the number twos. Chauncey Gooden was the right guard, and Carday Smith was the right tackle. And what I see from Carday is a heck of a lot of talent, but he's not ready yet. And that's to be expected because he's supposed to still be in high school. But interesting to see Carday and Chauncey and Yaya as the number two, mostly offensive line, and then Tyler Brown. And I think, part of what Coach Prime was saying to Tyler is you got to be more physical and nasty out there. And Vertus Shelby, I'm impressed with him so far this spring as that backup left tackle, that he's getting better and better, and certainly got the size to do it. So interesting from the scrimmage. It's hard for me to know what to take from the battles up front, except for this. That defensive line is so big and powerful that I was watching that, and I just my thought after a few rounds was, this reminds me of the 90s, man. When you had future NFL guys on both sides of the line just beating the hell out of each other up front, and it was hard to tell which one was better. Now, I'm not saying anything about any of these guys. Clearly, Jordan Seaton is a future NFL guy. We got some guys in the defensive line that are as well. But just watching the battles up front, there was something fundamentally different that I hadn't seen in previous springs. And that is that the offensive line can give as much as the defensive line gives. And it was really fun to watch. So we'll see how that plays out. But sorry to take over everything there.
No, it was good. I like the breakdown of the O-line. I was going to ask you about that anyway here. I only had a couple more notes. RJ Johnson, just watching the clips of the last week, he continues to stand out at cornerback. You kind of wanted that extra piece in there. You've penciled in Colton Hood. In Penn, I think you've got DJ McKinney and Preston Hodge starting nickelback and corner. And to have that extra guy that you can really count on, I think RJ Johnson is starting to be that. And we really didn't know. I think at safety, he might have gotten lost in the mix.
Right.
I look at safety as a position that they're going to have to address in the transfer portal this spring to fortify the depth there. But Ben Finiseth is doing his thing out there. You got to add more talent there.
Yeah, I wrote down RJ Johnson continues to impress as well. He just continues, okay, full disclosure, I'm not watching the defensive backs. So when one of them stands out to me, they got to be doing something, right? And so RJ Johnson continues to impress. I think Ben Finiseth is a guy, fifth-year guy who, one thing, and we'll get to this, I think, a little bit, that came clear to me from signing day amongst many things, is that Cameron Silmon-Craig was an outstanding safety, not because of his physical attributes, but other things, right? And Ben Finiseth is like that too. He's not going to be the guy that blows the doors off on pro timing day, but he understands the game and angles, and he gets things done. So, will he be as good as Cameron Silmon-Craig? I don't know. That remains to be seen, but I think that he brings something extra to the game that goes beyond just size and speed and, athleticism. And sometimes that measures up to more than, people just want to see those numbers for the NFL Combine. But sometimes a player is a player, and that the rest of it is sort of irrelevant.
I had one last note here. Isaiah Harge continues to make plays consistently out of the slot. I think that he's kind of found a home now at that position.
And I thought it was interesting, since you mentioned him, it was curious to me that they picked Draylon Miller to be the underclassman who got to run some stuff on the pro day, when you got two guys like Cameron Michael and Isaiah Harge out there as well. So I don't know how they made that choice, but I saw that too, with Harge continuing to be a weapon, and it just reminds me that we've got some weapons on this team that are gonna you're not gonna make people forget about Travis or Jimmy Horn or any of our receivers from last year. But we got some weapons, and we're not going to be sucking wind at the receiver and the offensive positions with the loss of those guys. And then the only other thing that sort of stood out to me from the week is that the linebacker room to me kind of remains I don't know if unsettled is the right word, but it's undecided at least. And I wouldn't be surprised to see them pick up another guy there, not because those guys can't get it done, but if you look at it, I would say there are 1 to 4. I don't know. I think you could say there are at least 5 guys in the running. I think Mantrez Walker is probably a year away. And so just to bring in possibly another guy at that inside linebacker spot, to me, from everything I'm hearing from Jeremiah Brown and Jalen Wester is good. Nothing's wrong with Hughes or French, but nobody has stood up. And I've seen flashes of Kylan Salter as well. So there's some guys making some noise in that room, but nobody stepped up yet to be the obvious, clear number one. And I don't think they had at this point last year in spring either.
Nope.
With Ty Hill-Green and
Hill-Green didn't even get on campus till the summertime.
Right.
So yeah.
Right. So I'm not saying this. I don't think people should go, oh my God, we got a problem with linebacker. I'm not saying that at all. I don't think we have a problem with linebacker, but it's not clear yet who those number ones are going to be.
Yeah. I do think French and Hughes are still, if you're putting a gun to my head, I'm still picking them. They've done well. I think Andre Hart is one of those coaches that he's very fun to play for, but he's also not going to build you up. He just is not going to do that. And there's been times where he'll bench a guy that played really well the week before in a game because he didn't perform well in practice. He just didn't like the look of things. And yeah.
But I also think that he understands as a coach that part of the deal is keeping the other guys involved and interested. And everybody that's played for him knows you could get your chance at any moment. So don't slack it off. Don't start going, well, that guy's the winner in practice, so screw it. Because at any given moment, like you said, he could bench the guy in front of you and you get your chance. And if you don't take it, well, you just lost your opportunity, man. Right? So at any given moment, and I got to tell you, Jeremiah Brown, this will be the second straight spring that he's been impressive. Now he needs to step up a little and take it to a little bit of a next level because he does a lot of good things, but he's got to do enough of those things on a regular basis to get that more playing time.
Yeah, it's tough. He's kind of been in that tweener category throughout his college career. And he is such a naturally gifted playmaker that hopefully they can find at least a role for him. Maybe he can be at some point, maybe like a third down specialist or what the role is going to be for him, but he's a good football player. And it was nice to have him come back in the program. And Trevor Woods is still hanging out with some CU players during spring break. And we haven't seen where he's landed. Maybe he's just kind of moved on from football, but it sure would be nice to have him part of the mix as well. I always liked Trevor Woods, though, more as a safety than I did as a linebacker.
But I also think Jeremiah Brown, last spring, what really stood out to me was his play in the open field, not necessarily as a pass rusher. It's getting out there and covered and things like that. So Jeremiah Brown, I think,
maybe be a dime third down backer type.
Yeah, or you could put him in there. Maybe he. I'm looking up to see who am I thinking of here. Keaton Wade last year had packages, okay, and clearly did things with him that specifically spoke to his particular talents and abilities. So, and clearly we got the same defensive coordinator and linebacker coach, so maybe they do that again and find ways. And that's what great coaches do, is find ways to make guys successful with what they can do rather than sit them on the bench because of what they can't do, if that makes sense.
Yeah. The Buffs are going to conduct practices 10, 11, and 12 of the spring this coming week, then 13, 14 in the spring game the following week. So we've gone from spring ball kicking off to really getting down to the stretch run here. Today's episode is brought to us by Macaulay Capital Fractional CFO Services. Is your business looking for financial guidance and support, but not yet big enough to hire a full-time CFO? Well, we have a solution for you. Hiring a fractional CFO who can work with your business on a part-time basis. You get the benefit of having a seasoned financial expert on your team without the commitment or expense of a full-time hire. And here's the best part. It's likely that a partnership with Macaulay Capital will be a win-win situation, meaning that your business will make more money from the guidance of a fractional CFO than the total cost of partnering with us. For more information or to set up a meeting, please visit MacaulayCapital.com. That's MCCAULEY Capital.com. William, everybody that listens to our podcast knows that we love the Hungry Toad. They've been bringing a taste of England to Boulder since 1991. At the Hungry Toad, they serve up hearty homemade fare from their scratch kitchen paired with a brilliant selection of British beers. They're the perfect spot for friends and family to gather, relax, and enjoy the warm, welcoming atmosphere. If you're mad for football, so are they. Whether it's the American gridiron or European footy, they proudly support CU football and CU women's soccer. The Hungry Toad, Boulder's local pub that's not on Pearl Street. Head to 2543 Broadway in Boulder.
And you know what? Hans Serrata don't take no weapons either. He hands them out. How's that for a second?
I love it. I love it. Head to the Hungry Toad for. We were watching Final Four games yesterday, and we ended up going to a local spot close to our house, and it was fine. But I was like, man, if we could just get down to the Hungry Toad right now, I could really go for some of that French onion soup that they have there. Maybe some wings on the side, maybe even a burger. I don't know how long we're going to be here, but those were some excellent basketball games yesterday. So I would have wished I was closer to the Hungry Toad. And every time I'm in Boulder, I look for an excuse to get there.
Well, that burger up there has become my go-to every time I go there. You just can't beat it. And it's so juicy and greasy, and it just I like a burger that's a mess by the time you get done with it.
Yeah, no, they got you if you need a good burger at the Hungry Toad. All right, Pro Timing Day took place on Friday. They coined it "We Ain't Hard to Find Showcase," and I love it. Look at this credential here, William. This thing is massive. Look at this thing. Yeah. It is like as big as my head.
Yeah. And that to me, I love that rebranding because that's not a thing you have to do. They're going to show up anyway. But that to me is the marketing brilliance and the genius of Coach Prime, that he takes even, an event that's going to happen every year, no matter what. And he makes it a showcase, right? It's not just a Pro Timing Day. It's a showcase, and he brands it, and people are going to remember that. They're going to take that big, every single person that got that thing is probably going to keep it behind you have all your race bibs, right? And so I bet some people probably collect those credentials, and that's a good one. It's going to stand out. I just think it's when I saw that, it just made me smile. And I think of Coach Prime, and I think about this is a guy that covers every freaking base, man. And this is a guy who can go from putting together, turning regular timing day into We Ain't Hard to Find showcase. And then, the next day can go out and tell the offensive line, we ain't taking no whoopings. We give out whoopings, and the two very different sides of that person. And I'm just blown away continually. We're 2+ years into this with Coach Prime, and he keeps surprising me, man. He's just freaking brilliant. He's just, I don't know, it's almost larger than life, I think, sometimes. And I think that if anybody has doubts now and still has questions at this point, I don't know what to tell you, because this guy is, I don't know, man. He's just larger than life, and he may get his face on the flat irons before all is said and done.
Well, I wish I had counted the number of scouts and folks that were in the building for previous Pro Timing Day events that I've covered at Colorado. There have been some fun moments that have come out of those events. Like Brad Jones went from being a guy that no NFL scouts even seemed to know much about to he was getting pulled away throughout Pro Timing Day, got drafted by the Green Bay Packers, had a nice career. Philip Lindsay running a 4.38. None of us ever saw that because his knee was so jacked up when he came into CU. So that was a fun day. But, I mean, nothing compares to this Pro Timing Day on any scale in terms of number of people there, number of draft prospects, just the overall buzz and just feeling around the program with that event. There were 13 members of the New York Giants staff that were on campus. That's crazy.
And they followed it up, with bringing in a really excellent recruiting group for this weekend. That part of that has to be the excitement of coming right off of that. And I don't know to what extent any of those guys got there and overlapped that, but it also goes to show that he's able to cover have all things going. They have that huge Pro Signing Day showcase, and then they get all the recruits on, and then they have the scrimmage, and another thing that stood out to me from the scrimmage was they showed Coach Prime talking to those their actual refs that they brought in, actual college football refs, and him talking about, here's what I want, here's what they, and the professionalism of that, and of how he handled that, and talking to them, and that's setting relationships with those guys too for game day. And hey, everybody's supposed to be impartial, but you know what? It doesn't hurt you to get those close calls, to have a good relationship with those guys and treat them with respect, but also have them there to call things on your players in practice. And he just covers every single aspect of everything, and it's all taken care of. And watching that pro day, and watching some of the guys really help themselves and such. It's just there's, man, if you ain't excited about CU football and having some fun with things right now, I don't know what to tell you.
There was definitely some buzz with Jimmy Horn Jr. and Will Sheppard on Friday in that facility. Yeah. Horn bested his time in the 40-yard dash from what he did at the combine, and that deep catch where he caught it and then does the standing backflip. That was a fun moment during the day. Will Sheppard, a 40.5-inch vertical. I knew he was going to have hops, but when he sprung up like that, it was like, whoa, holy crap. Yeah. I said going into the day to another person that I would pay Travis Hunter $100 out of my own pocket just to see him do the vertical leap. Obviously, there was no incentive for him to do that. That's not a criticism. He shouldn't have done that. But just as a fan of athletic freaks, you want to see that. But I think Will Sheppard for throwing that 40.5, because it was like, okay, that's what I wanted to see today, was something like that. And he did that. He had a 10-foot, 11-inch broad jump as well. He said he was a jumper in track in high school. I believe that after watching that.
Yeah, and with that kind of, jumping is about explosive power, and to have that kind of ability with his height is really gonna. And he did well. To run a 4.5 range 40, I think really helped all the way around. The other guy that I had fun watching was BJ Green, and he just looks so powerful and strong and fast. That 4.7. He's always going to be undersized by NFL. Like they want certain metrics, but he's a guy that just gets things done and makes plays, and he looked good out there. I think he had a better day in Boulder than he had at the other one.
He had a good day out there too. Like his motor always stands out. It is something that catches people, that catches their attention when they see just the tenacity he plays with. Philip Lindsay was named the Tasmanian Devil on offense, and that's been BJ Green's kind of nickname too, is Tasmanian Devil. Like he's a tornado rolling through there. Yeah, he's undersized, but he's got the leverage thing there. I don't want to oversell some of these guys, and just because I cover the Buffs, but BJ Green is a guy that I don't doubt his desire and his will to make a team somewhere.
I think he's going to have a successful NFL career, and I think he's going to be a very good pass rusher out there and do some things at the next level that may be a surprise to a lot of people outside of Boulder and Arizona State. Frankly, I think he's shown enough in college. The guy gets the job done every time he goes out there and plays, regardless of how tall he is. I thought Shane Koch caught some eyes and did some good things, and he's going to be a guy if he makes it at the next level as sort of a utility guy in a variety of different roles. Justin Mayers and Chidozie Nwankwo, both have their limitations, but they both showed their strength and power on the bench press, and so I noted this before, but it's just fun to see Draylon Miller out there, and I think that sort of thing where you take a young guy, and he's probably I don't know to what extent they talked about this before, to get out there and make a name for himself with the scouts. That resonates with everybody on the team, right? It's like they're all, because they're all there, they're all watching in the background, and they got I want this, and then you see one of your younger guys, and you're like, well, maybe next year I can do it.
Well, I don't know if I'm sure the Scouts had some type of roster, but I bet there were a lot of them going, who the heck is that kid? Because he looked the part. He looked like an NFL draft pick for this year.
Right. And what is he, a second-year guy?
Yeah, true sophomore.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a freshman really in terms of in terms of classwork. I mean, he just got on campus last year. Or yeah.
So, and that just goes to show. I think the excitement of this, and this is only these pro days are only going to get better, man. I mean, we won't necessarily we won't have a Shador and a Travis Hunter next year, but we're going to have more guys at a higher level. I think we'll have more draft picks each succeeding year from now on. And one thing I was thinking as I was watching it is, we're a 9-win team this year, and for us to be one of those, 11, 12 win playoff teams, we need more guys that are going to clearly get drafted. And we're getting there. We're doing that in our recruiting, both in the portal and from high school. And those guys, those kinds of guys are coming on campus now, and we're going to fill that. And so we're going to have in pro days to come, we're going to have even more guys that they're watching.
And good 40 times by both Shiloh Sanders and Mark Fassett at the combine as well. You mentioned Justin Mayers and Shadoze they killed it on the bench press. So did Shane Cokes. Shane Cokes looks great physically right now. I sign me up for, if I'm in the NFL as a GM, sign me up for my practice squad right now with some Shane Cokes action, because he's a guy that's going to make that group better.
And with a degree from an Ivy League school, he's smart enough to just come in and pick up whatever you're doing like that and be a leader he's been a leader his whole time here. So he's the kind of guy you can't go wrong having him around.
And props to Shador and Travis for participating. They didn't need to. Shiloh, Shador, because of their last name, continued to get nitpicked for everything. The Shador part of it, apparently the people on NFL broadcast were saying that he had a couple of balls that bobbled a little bit. Being there in person, I thought he had a fantastic day.
Yeah. And I guess some people just got to find something to talk about, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, they even did like a 2-minute drill thing at the end, which the scouts were like, oh my gosh, no one does this. We love this. Again, going back to doing things that other people are kind of being trendsetters in that sense. But, I'm going to miss having Shador around, but I'm not going to miss the drama and it's not his fault, but I kind of look at the calendar and go, when can we get to this draft? Because I'm sick of seeing the Shador just, stuff that's out there that is not true. If you've spent time around the guy, which I don't know Shador Sanders all that well, where local media has got certain, access, but you've seen the way he's maneuvered the last 2 years, and it's like the character stuff. Come on, man. Cam Ward is more of kind of a cranky guy than Shador is. I think Shador is going to fit in better with his teammates in the NFL than Cam Ward.
Yeah.
Cam Ward, and I think Cam Ward's going to be a good player, but the character stuff, that focused on him, I'm so over it at this point.
Well, it's all bullshit. There's no character problems with Shador. He's never been in trouble. He's always got good grades. He's always been a leader on the team. He's always done things for his teammates. But he's not Mr. Outgoing like his brother. And he's not a guy that likes to be in front of the camera and promote himself or whatever. And so I think that both he and Shiloh, because of their last name, get unfair focus on them, and mostly to the negative. When in reality, neither one of them's done anything but positives. And even CU fans, crack on Shiloh all the time, and I think they're stupid and they don't know what they're talking about. And I thought he had a great day out there, and we'll see what happens. It's like I can't tell you how many times I see on the board is like, I like Shiloh, but ain't no but. Don't need a but. He was a good player for us, man. I don't know why you got to find a but and put in a negative. We'll see what he does at the next level. I think he'll do significantly better than most of the experts on our board think, but we'll see what happens, but I just
the Kansas State game was rough, but he shouldn't have been out there. And most athletes, and this is something Shiloh pointed out to the media at Pro Timing Day, is that my forearm literally snapped in half, and I still got back there. Should he have been out there in that situation against DJ Giddens, who is an unbelievable running back? Maybe not, but you could, as a Buff fan, you would at least, I think, appreciate his dedication to it.
Well, anybody who judges a player's career by one game is an idiot and doesn't understand the game. Full stop.
Okay. Fair enough. I ran into Derek Webb, like I mentioned. He's been mentoring Martavius French for a few years now because they're both from Tennessee. And so it was good to get some insight on him. Ran into and got a chance to meet LeJontay Wester's agent, and I was telling him, like, your guy, the 450 is like, for somebody his size, not great, but like, man, if they could just measure his pure quickness, you really need like defenders out there for LeJontay Wester to stand out. And he said, he knows that special teams is the way he's going to get his foot in the door in the NFL.
Well, and I also think it'd be, I've always thought that they should run the 40 in the underwear like they do, but they should put the helmets and the full pads on and run it too. And the football cleats, and without the track shoes, like actually put on what you wear for a football game and run the 40 and see what you do. Because I bet some of them be significantly different, And then some people just respond to that game day adrenaline or challenge or whatever it is, and respond in an entirely different way, and he's one of those guys for sure. And then other guys, like as a receiver, you get out there and some of these things are intangibles. Like as a receiver, he gets out there and I guess I call it vision, but he sort of sees and senses things, and maybe he'll feel a guy coming this way and changes route slightly, and he finds those open spots, and then he doesn't get caught from behind, right? And how many, and I'm tempted to say zero, how many receivers make that Baylor play?
I was telling his agent that, man. I was like, I keep watching that, and the throw is unbelievable, but just what LeJontay does to readjust at the end of that thing, like we'll be watching that for the rest of our lives. I think
because he's running straight down like he's going to the back corner of the end zone, and he just changes it entirely and curves around that guy. And you can't fault the defense on that because they were in perfect position. But the dude knew where the ball was, he knew where the defenders were, and he knew where he had to get.
And if he cut back any sooner, the defenders would have readjusted. So, it was unbelievable. That play is unbelievable.
Right. And those are the kinds of things that's just sort of, you can't at the end of the day say anything except that's just football instincts, ball awareness, whatever, body awareness. I don't know what the hell you even call that. Kind of magical, really. And it's like, and people are going to crack on me a bit, but watch Michael Jordan play basketball, right? Some of it's not explainable. It's just not explainable, And that's what I think is what we love about sports and great athletic games when we watch them. Put away all the stupid crap and greed and the stupid off the field junk. What we watch for is for these guys to do magical, unbelievable things, right? And that's one of those things. You can't break that play down. You just say, that guy's able to do that. Yeah. And most of them aren't.
Yeah.
And I don't give a damn what he ran in the 40. You want that guy on your team because you'd rather have that happening for you than against you.
And he was in the 4.4s at the NFL Combine, so he's not lacking for speed. But the gains that LeJontay is getting are like 10, 20, 30 yards, not necessarily 40 yards. And so,
you think he could beat me in a 40?
Yes, I do. It's funny. There's some folks who are trying to get me and Ryan Koenigsberg to race each other again because he smoked me in the 100-meter dash way back during the Mike McIntyre era. And I pulled a thigh muscle during that. And I'm like, even Ryan was like, I got my win. I'm not going to do that again. I'm like, man, you got the win forever. I'm not.
Yeah, he's had a little older since then. So
have I.
All right. So let's not. We don't need the emergency. We call that the emergency room Olympics.
Yeah, exactly. Anything else on your mind?
Out there. And my fat old butt out there, and I don't know. So I think recruiting is going well, and I think it's going to be exciting in these next few weeks. I think the things that have happened in the last few weeks are really going to open the contract with Coach Prime and the pro day, and I think it only makes recruiting better. I think that I think it's very clear to me that there's still much more. You still have to be able to recruit, and I think people to think it's only about the bag is silly and stupid. Certainly, that's an element of it. But if that's what it was, and everybody who would get all the players who gives the biggest amount of money. But it's like if you're in the game financially, it's at some level, it's like I don't know, just to use figures to make it representatives. Like if somebody offers 500 and you offer 1,000, is it really that much of a difference? To at some point, it's still going to come down to the intangibles of things that like location and playing time, winning, championship opportunities, good coaching, friends, family, girlfriends, whatever. But I just think that given a total combination of things, with our coaching staff and our location and everything else, there's a lot, and just the personality of our head coach, we offer so much more than so many places out there. I just think the recruiting is going to get better and better and just continue to be pretty exciting.
Definitely head to BuffStampede.com as we are covering this recruiting weekend. We had a list of visitors up late this past week, and I've been reaching out to guys that are on campus. And Champ Bailey's son got back to me while we've been doing this podcast, so I'll have a story on him as well. So that's a cool new offer that's come out. He's 2028, so he's way down the line, but some really talented 2026 recruits on campus this weekend. And if you haven't seen on our BuffStampede.com message board, we've got an updated list of guys that have visited Colorado this spring and are planning to. So we tease the recruiting content a little bit on this show, but William, it's always fun to catch up with you on a Sunday. I don't know if we're going to go more than a half an hour, and then we're inevitably like right at an hour when we get done with our notes here. So it's fun to go a little unscripted, just kind of share some different things we've jotted down over the week, and kind of sets the stage for the next week when it's crazy. There's just 2 weeks of spring ball left.
Right. Yeah. And it just goes by, and, each year comes around a little quicker. So there's a lot to watch this next couple of weeks, and hopefully we can get together next weekend again and keep doing this, because it's as long as Coach Prime keeps giving us plenty to talk about, and it's a lot of fun, we'll keep doing it.
And do you want to say, before we sign off, I realize that we've gotten to the end of the show and we haven't brought up Dan Lanny. Do you have any messages for him today on today's show before we sign off?
I already mentioned him earlier when you had the
before we hit record, though, for the people out there.
You put the Mel Tucker bobblehead, and I said that Coach Danny Boy replaced him as number one because Karma got to Coach Tucker before I could.
That's right. Thanks for the correction there. Yeah.
Maybe Karma will get to Danielle before I get to him too. So save us both, and I could just go fishing.
Well, it's good. I'm glad I messed up and forgot that, because now we've bookended this show that way. So that's always good. Appreciate you, William, and hopefully we can.
You, sir, are what they call an instigator. Hopefully see what you can get coming out, but I'm calm and collected and cool here today. So
all
right. Last week was salty week. Today is just calm, mild-mannered reporter.
All right, we'll see if the YouTube comments and folks on Buff Stampede like this dialed back version, or if we need to get back to Morton Salt for next week's show. Leave your comments and be sure to subscribe and rate the podcast. William, always great to chat with you, buddy. And thanks for taking the time out to do this.
Thank you very much. It's always my pleasure.
And always appreciate everybody out there for tuning in.